Before we kick things off today, we're hosting an AI event at the Minneapolis Club on May 19th. There are details in the link below. We will be filming the first ever live episode of the Twin Cities Business Show featuring General Mills Chief Digital and Transformation Officer Jaime Montemayor, as well as an expert panel who are going to talk all about the topics. We hope to see you there. Today on the Twin Cities Business Show, we are talking to Hormel Foods President John Ghingo. We talked to John all about their brands from Spam to Skippy and everything in between, where the company is going, his vision for what's next, and what's the deal with their peanut butter. Welcome to the Twin Cities Business Show. I am here today amidst a variety of very fun-looking food with John Ghingo, the president of Hormel Foods. John, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Very happy to be here, Charlie.
Really excited to have you. So we are living in a protein frenzy moment. Everywhere I look, protein, protein, protein. Why is everyone so obsessed with protein, and when did that start?
It's a very good question. So my history in the food industry goes back about 25 years. And over that time in the food industry, we've seen a lot of ups and downs in consumer interest, whether you think about things like calorie counting or low fat, low carb, low sugar, keto diet, paleo diet, a lot of things come and go. But actually, over that time period, the consumer interest in protein has steadily grown. It is the enduring trend in the food industry. I recently shared a chart of data that showed Google search history around the term protein over the past 2 decades. And each year it climbs and climbs and climbs. And what's behind that is consumers wanting to learn more about protein, to understand protein. And so we're at a point now where consumers associate protein with a whole range of benefits. Things you might expect, like strength, muscle, but things you might not expect, like healthy aging, bone health, satiety, and weight management. And so because consumers associate protein with so many benefits, they're looking for protein all the time. And we actually now have data that says 2/3 of all consumers are intentionally consuming protein. So it's not just young people. Increasingly older people are looking for protein as well. They're looking for it at breakfast, lunch, dinner, snacking. So I think some of what you're seeing is, a lot of food companies reacting to that. And it does feel right now like there is a bit of a frenzy where you're seeing protein added to products that have never had protein. At Hormel Foods, we've been in the protein business a long time. We like to say we do protein the old-fashioned way through the food. Um, you know, Protein shows up naturally in the foods we bring to the market, bring to consumers. So I think while there is a bit of a frenzy right now, the long-term trend is actually driven by people understanding the real benefits of protein and how it makes their body feel.
Really interesting. So, it feels like a lot of the world has come to Hormel, right? Like the trends are coming to things that you guys do and have done for a while really well. So, tell me a little bit more about your vision for the company within that and, where you want to help take things the next couple of years.
Yeah. So if I look at the history of Hormel, it is a special company. Um, Over time, Hormel has built what I would call protein diversification. So, its roots in history as a pork company became an industry leading company in Turkey as well, expanded into beef, chicken, more recently, nuts, nut butters, right? A broad set of proteins. That diversification is an opportunity to meet consumer needs. So, what we're doing now is really investing in the transformation of the company. And if you think about things like systems, data, process, people, um, and our brands, we are investing across the board ultimately to transform our capability as a company to meet those consumer needs around protein. So while we have the diversification, our opportunity is how do we continue to do things that have been in our company DNA for a long time? For a long time, we've figured out how to make protein easy, how to make it affordable, how to make it convenient. We want to continue to do that. And with more consumers looking for more protein more often, our opportunity is to continue to innovate to be there when they need us. And that part of that is having the right products, but it's also about being in the right places. So if you look at the Hormel business, we do have a great, what we would call retail business. That's where you'd think about grocery stores, club stores, mass merchants, where you would buy our branded products. We also have a very big, important business of what we call food service, and that's away from home channels. That's everywhere else consumers are looking for protein. That could be hospital cafeterias, university cafeterias, restaurants, hotels, convenience stores, unattended retail outlets. consumers are looking for protein across the board. So our opportunity as a company is to continue to have the right products, easy, affordable, available in all of those places when consumers want protein.
Interesting. So, digging in on a couple of your brands, you spent some time at Applegate, and that is a really interesting brand to think about in this context. What are some things that you feel like you could bring from working directly at that brand to your position now?
Applegate has a great history. I would say some of the things that Applegate is very good at and has been good at historically is really listening to consumers. There is a group of consumers who really value the Applegate brand. They're willing to pay a premium for high animal welfare, meat raised a certain way, with animals raised a certain way. They're willing to pay for natural and organic products. They're willing to pay for simplified ingredient statements. Um, and so, really listening to those consumers and making sure the brand continues to stay true to what consumers want is a great lesson to take to the rest of the business. That's one tribe of consumers, it's one group, but there are lots of groups of consumers who have needs. And if you think about those who are really crunched for time and looking for easy solutions, that's an important group of consumers. And so listening to consumers, building brands that reflect the promise to those consumers, staying true to that, and then innovating. So Applegate, when it first started, wasn't in all the categories it is today. But as the brand expanded over time, we figured out that if we could stay true to that promise, we could bring the brand all across the store to different categories to meet different needs as long as we lived up to those standards. So there's also a lesson in how we innovate off of our brands. When we get the core promise right, the core benefits right, connect with the consumer, the brands become much more extendable.
Interesting. So, let's talk about the extension of one of those, and that is spam. Spam is so interesting to me. First, as a means of disclosure, my grandpa used to work in sales for Hormel way back in the day, so decades ago, and he was selling lots of spam then, and it endures. And now you have this sort of interesting collaboration that you're working on, and it feels like it's in this interesting cultural moment where it's spam is kind of cool right now. It's in some of the hot restaurants in Minneapolis, for example. How do you take that sort of brands knowing their promise and then innovating on top of it and apply that to some of the stuff going on with spam?
Yeah, that's a great question. So spam does certainly have its roots in the United States. A lot of people in different areas in the US grew up with spam, consuming it. But increasingly, what we're finding is that as spam made its way around the world as a global brand, and a lot of that started back in the World War II era, where the US soldiers were stationed in different places abroad, spam was present with them, became a part of the local food culture. And so, what we've seen is that the usage of spam, whether you go to the Philippines or Japan or Korea or Hawaii, the usage of spam looks different than it does in the US. And some of those ideas translate very well back to the United States. So we brought a whole wave of news from Asia back to the US, and we're attracting new consumers with that. As you see applications of spam, like the one we have in front of us there with spam musubi, which is a very popular format in places like Hawaii. We're attracting new consumers, but we're also making spam fresh for those people who grew up with spam because we're giving them new ways to use it and consume it. And at its core, spam is still affordable, convenient protein that tastes good, but giving it fresh news, fresh application, fresh ways to think about it is really about keeping the brand fresh overall. And so, I love the idea of transferring ideas from one market to the other. I've had experiences in my career doing that. It is a great source of inspiration and innovation is to look at the world around us and see what's happening naturally. The most recent example here, which is spam with Bashans, the Japanese
Okay,
barbecue
yeah, yeah.
sauces, is a partnership um, where we actually found on social media that this is how people were using spam. They actually were coupling these two products together. So Bashans and spam were being used together. It was becoming a hot trend on social media. So we actually worked with Bashans and created a product to just go after that directly. And it's exciting and it's inspired by ideas around us.
That's really cool, really cool. And you sort of touched on it, but just to hit on it again, this thing on this plate is very linked with World War II. Can you sort of take us through the story of how that happened?
Yeah. So because our soldiers needed nourishment. They needed protein. Spam was a great solution, and Hormel was very active in making sure there was spam for our troops as they were overseas. The shelf stability, the convenience of having protein packed in cans that was very durable made it a great traveling food. So as soldiers would take it abroad, they would often engage with some trading with locals. Maybe they didn't need as much spam, but they needed some rice or they needed something else. And so because of that, spam made its way into the hands of locals around the world. And for those folks, they started discovering spam in that way, which is, wow, this is a tasty, delicious food that I can add to a meal. So I can couple it with rice, or I can couple it with a vegetable, or I can couple it with something else, and it gives it some protein and some flavor. And so as you travel around to these places now, spam has permeated food culture in very different ways based on those local flavor preferences. So this format in front of us is something that you consider to be a sushi-like format of spam, and there's a whole bunch of different sushi-like applications of spam because that's the way it made its way into local food culture.
I love that. That's just a really fun story. Um, you've spent some time working on the company's sort of purpose and mission and thinking about some of that and, what that looks like in the years to come. Can you talk a little bit about that work and sort of how you see the company positioning itself in the next few years?
Yeah, sure. So I do think for a company to connect itself to the outside world, it's really important to see the opportunity from an inside out. And so we've spent a lot of time over the past year reflecting on two things. One is our great history as a company. We've been around for 135 years. It's a company with a great history, a proud history, investing in communities, building brands, connecting with consumers. So we went back to our history to find inspiration of what is special about Hormel Foods. We also looked at the world on the outside and said, in today's world and projecting it to the future, what does the world need where we can make a difference? And not just in terms of building our business, which we want to do. We want to successfully advance our business, but we actually want to have an impact in the world. And so we landed recently on articulating all of that with a purpose statement, which is fueling every day with real food for real people. And it's something we're incredibly proud of and excited about. If you've been around Hormel or you know Hormel, that shouldn't feel like a foreign idea. It should feel like something that actually fits us quite well. But if you project out to what consumers are looking for in terms of protein and fuel and energy, and think about the importance of having a portfolio of products that are affordable, accessible, available for all different types of consumers, that everyday nature of what we do is super important. So we take heart in that, we find inspiration in that, we find motivation in that. How do we continue to bring these protein powered solutions to nourish people, to strengthen the communities in which they live and in which we operate? That's really our purpose and mission of the company. And it gives us the energy we need to go innovate and find those new solutions, listen to consumers. We're incredibly proud of that work, excited about the work, and it paints it in a picture where what we're doing inside of our four walls can have a real impact outside of the company in the world around us.
Interesting. Interesting. You touched on something there, which was, food affordability. Food has just gotten really expensive everywhere. That's grocery stores, restaurants, everything. Inflation has really hit the food sector really, really hard the last couple of years. What are you guys doing internally to just look at ways that you can make feeding your family a little bit more affordable?
Hmm, It's a great question. Certainly, if we look over the past handful of years, we hear from consumers what I refer to as the cumulative effects of inflation. Their feelings just piled up over time. And that's creating a lot of strain. Is how do you do all the things you need to do with that mountain of inflation that's kind of piled up? Um, as a company, there's a couple of things. One, we are fortunate to have a broad range of products. So while there are consumers who are still willing to pay for a premium brand like an Applegate, we also have more affordable brands, more affordable price points for consumers who are valuing that. So we do have a range. Two, at times we do need to take our prices up to reflect commodity market increases, those things, but we try to be extremely judicious and measured with doing that. We are constantly watching what we think the consumer can withstand and balancing those decisions to say how much pricing can we take, even if it means we can't cover all of the cost increases coming at us. We're being balanced in how we make those decisions. And then three is continuing to look for opportunities to create value. So consumers don't just think about price when they're stretched on affordability. They're thinking about what value do I get from this. And so it's a merger of things. So I'll give an example right here. I have Genio ground turkey, if we could see it, but it's essentially lean ground turkey that someone would buy and put in the refrigerator. Now, this is very on trend. We're seeing a lot of growth in ground turkey for two reasons. One, there is a health benefit there that people want lean protein, and poultry fits that very well. It's a very lean source of protein. But two, ground turkey in particular offers versatility, meaning I can bring it home, I can put it in the fridge, and over the next few days, I can use it in a variety of different ways. I can make tacos with it, I can make turkey burgers with it, and I know I can create things where it'll get used, and different people in the household will all find something they love in it. And so the fact that it's going to get used and it'll be enjoyed by multiple people in the house gives it a versatility that's also valuable. So it's not just about the price point, it is about the usage, it is about the value, and versatility is a part of that, as is convenience. So, as strapped as people are, they're even more strapped for time. And so if they have 10 minutes to make dinner instead of 60 minutes, and we can give them a solution that's affordable to make that dinner in 10 minutes, that's valuable. So with each of our brands, wherever they sit on that pricing tier, we try to continue to build in value, make it easy, make it more convenient for people, make it more versatile, give them more ideas of how they can use it. Another example is the spam in terms of all the different ways you can use spam. People like that, they find value in it. It's in the cabinet when I need it, I can pull it out. I know I'm going to use it because there's all these different ways I can use it.
Really, really neat. Really neat. Um, let's talk peanut butter for a second because I think you guys have had this really interesting peanut butter journey the last couple years. So you have Planters, you're in the peanut business. You guys had Justin's, you still have Skippy, and this is a Skippy that I have never seen before. So I was wondering if you could just take us through the last couple years of peanut butter generally, and take us through the decision to sell Justin's, the new things you guys are trying with Skippy, and how all that has evolved at the company.
Hmm, great question. Yeah, we're excited about our peanut butter opportunity as well as our nuts in general. If you think about the diversification around protein, to have some plant-based alternatives in our portfolio coming from nuts and nut butters is a great complement to our animal-based protein portfolio. Um, Skippy in particular is a brand with a very loyal following, a beloved brand. Um, it's one of the bigger, let's say, mainstream brands in the category. And if you look at how people are using Skippy, my head at the age I am and how I grew up, I think about the peanut butter and jelly sandwich, and there still is that behavior. But increasingly, the way people are using peanut butter is all different ways, with vegetables, with fruit, with rice cakes, as a snack to fill me up during the day. So as we find consumers eating more and more mini meals, fuel stops as opposed to big sit down meals, peanut butter plays incredibly well into those different occasions. So part of our opportunity is to take a brand like Skippy and continue to meet consumer needs that look very different than the peanut butter and jelly sandwich, right? Whether that means innovating packaging, whether it means new product formats, whether it means being in channels when they're looking for those types of portable fuel snacks, that we have Skippy there with solutions. And so, to your question of some of the innovation we've done on Skippy, you will see more from us. This is a Skippy natural product. We have a Skippy protein product where we're catering to consumers who are looking for more protein or a more natural label. So, those are some of the things we're doing. But we're also pushing into more versatile usage occasions, more portability, more snackable forms of Skippy. We're doing some of that through licensing. Um, Justin's is a very interesting brand. It was a second foray for us into nut butters. What we found over time is a lot of the growth on Justin's was actually coming more in confections than in jars of nut butters.
Sweets and candy and
Sweets and candy, which really was not core to our business. Confectionery business is something I actually have worked in my past. It's a very different route to market, different business model. So it was becoming, I will say, less of a fit to what we were doing, and it's a brand with wonderful values. So we actually, announced the sale of the majority of Justin's to a private equity firm. We're still partnered with them as we still own 49% of the business. We love Justin's. We think the brand has a lot of potential, but we think it's better suited in their hands to extract the value.
great. Um, One of the things that I find so fascinating about what you guys do is you really have to be able to know what people are going to be eating 5 years from now, maybe even 10 years down the road. You're planning supply chains, you're planning all these things. And how do you do that? How do you figure out what people are going to be eating 5 years from now?
Yeah, great question. So when I came back to the company in 2024, one of the first things we started was what we call the Consumer Demand Landscape Project, where we actually plotted out, not how we view the world in categories like peanut butter or pepperoni or ground turkey. We plotted the world how a consumer views the world. What are the needs they have? What are the occasions? These products and products from other companies, they all interact. A consumer doesn't wake up in the morning thinking, what brand of peanut butter am I going to have today? They probably are thinking about, what snack am I going to have to get me between breakfast and my late lunch when I have that meeting? So we plotted the world according to the consumer view. We call it a consumer demand landscape. And then we take trend data and we layer that on top to project out which of those demand spaces are going to grow over time and which products and categories seem to be really trending into them, so we can see what that landscape starts to look like and project it into the future. And then we make decisions about, okay, how do we reposition our brands or start new innovation projects that might take 2, 3, 4 years to get to market, so we can be there at that time. And we're not always right. Sometimes it's right, sometimes it's wrong, but it's actually a pretty good method for projecting out into the future and figuring out, how do we take our plot now and make sure we orient it to where the puck is going or where the consumer is going.
So, do you have any examples of sort of trends that you're seeing right now, or innovation projects that you guys are launching to try to chase those trends?
Yeah, I mean, so two I would bring up, and this brings me back to what we refer to as the protein verse. So
Hmm.
this whole world of expanding protein, we refer to it as the protein verse. And the two examples I will give that are fundamentally changing, one is snacking. So if you think about the way people eat, three square meals, maybe a couple of snacks in between, that is fundamentally changing. We're seeing fewer consumers actually sitting down for the three meals. We're seeing more and more the behavior of, I may have five mini meals during the day and maybe only one sit down meal, or I may have three and two. And so I'll call that behavior snacking, mini meal grazing, snacking. That behavior is still increasing. Yet the types of snacks that consumers are looking for those moments are changing. So if you think about a lot of the traditional snacking categories, chips, cookies, crackers, candy, those products were fundamentally designed for treating, not really for fueling as a meal bridge or meal replacement or a fuel stop. And so while the behavior is increasing, those categories aren't necessarily designed to capture the growth. Consumers are looking for more of what I refer to as substantial snacking, and those are satiating snacks that actually fill you up, make you feel good, and get you to the next meal. They're not designed for repeatability and munchability, or they're designed to make you feel full. So as we project that forward, we see that behavior increasing over time. We think more consumers are going to be looking for more substantial snacks. Younger consumers are eating that way from the beginning, and they're going to have a bigger impact on the overall market for food. So we're taking our core brands to that point. Think of a Skippy. And how do you take it from the lunch occasion, which would be the peanut butter and jelly sandwich? I'm sitting at the table with a glass of milk, to actually portable, fuel oriented snacking that peanut butter is great for. That gives you that energy, that fills you up, that gets you to the next stop. So that's an example. A second example would be a meat product like a pepperoni. Pepperoni is a wonderful product. People love to snack on it. Often the reason they bring it into the home is for pizza topping,
Hmm.
but once it's there, they use it in all different ways, with cheese, with a cracker, just snacking on it right out of the bag. You take a product like that and think of it as a, not necessarily a meal complement, but actually something that can fill you up in between meals, maybe paired with cheese. So platforms like Hormel gatherings for us, which is where we bring together pepperoni, cheese, and crackers, have tremendous potential to reach consumers for all different occasions. When they're on the go, when they're in need of a meal bridge or a fuel stop or some type of an occasion like that. So we're looking at each of our businesses with that lens. Snacking is one. The other one that's fascinating right now is morning. So the traditional breakfast, and you think a lot of the breakfast behavior in the United States was carbs and sugars and sweet things. Not all of it, but a lot of it. And you might have bacon on the weekend. Increasingly, we're hearing from consumers that they actually want protein made easy on a daily breakfast. They want, maybe it's they're going to have two doses of fuel in the morning. They're not going to have the sit down breakfast, but they're going to want something protein rich and then something again mid morning. So how do we give them products like our bacon, or Applegate has a great range of breakfast sausage. Um, we're currently selling an interesting product from Applegate, a fun one, which is pancake sausage on a stick.
Oh,
So it comes
I'm
literally on a
interested.
stick. Think of it as a morning corn dog,
Uh huh.
with a relatively simple ingredient statement and a really tasty filling sausage in the middle. So those are the types of products that actually orient really well to the changing behavior from consumers in the morning that are looking for convenient, simple ways to feel good.
I have to try that. I have to try that
It's
immediately.
very good.
Um, I definitely want to spend some time talking about Austin because I've spent a little bit of time in Austin, and I think it's just a really special place. Can you talk a little bit about what Austin, Minnesota, I should add, is
Yes.
like, and your experience just spending time there so far?
Yeah, that's a great question. So it's funny when I first started to get to know Hormel, I joined the company as a member of the Applegate team. It was a subsidiary company on the East Coast, and I would travel out to visit Hormel every few weeks. And I started to realize what a special company it was and what a special culture it was. And it was sort of a deep sense of history, pride, of commitment. And as I would come back and come back and come back, and I would stay in Austin and do things in Austin and get to know people in Austin and maybe visit them in their homes, I started to really understand the connection between Austin and Hormel is unlike anything I had ever experienced. There's a symbiotic relationship there where the community feeds the company feeds the community. Um, it's very close, intimate in a way. And for a Fortune 500 company to still be rooted in a small town in a relatively rural area is quite special, and it has a big impact on our culture of the company. Austin itself is a vibrant community, so we call it a small town. It's not a tiny town. It's 25,000 people. It's become a bit of a global community, and we have people from all over the world. We have food from all over the world. The Austin public schools have 43 languages spoken. 18% of our Austin residents were born outside of the United States, which is about twice the percentage of the state of Minnesota in total. And it's an exciting, vibrant place to be. We also have the Spam Museum, which is one of the most frequented free attractions in the state of Minnesota for tourism. So we welcome anyone who'd like to come visit. But it's a fun town and it's a very close community and it's a special place.
I completely agree. I have loved my visits there. I would encourage people to visit, and the Spam Museum is genuinely very cool.
Yes.
It's a really good time. Um, where do you see Hormel 10 years in the future?
Hmm.
Where's the company headed?
It's a great question. So, we like to refer to ourselves as the consumer company that wins with protein. And so I think about both sides of that. I think, we need to continue to make sure we stay really close to the consumer. And I talk about the consumer and, the different food tribes that are out there, consumer groups. We need to follow the consumer to evolve and really become a consumer driven company. That's point one. And I see that in our future. When we go to market with our food service business, we haven't talked a lot about that. Our food service business runs through operators, and they're our proxy for the consumers in that case, meaning just like we're in the home kitchen with consumers figuring out how do we make bacon super easy and different things like that. In the commercial kitchens of a hotel, of a restaurant, of a hospital, we need to be in the kitchen and figuring out how do we make protein easier. People love protein, they want it all the time, but protein's not easy to work with. So we need to continue to be very close to consumers, very close to those operator partners in the commercial kitchens, and make sure we continue to bring solutions. So where I see us 10 years from now is we need to be the best innovation company, meeting consumer needs and meeting operator needs, and have expertise across a broad range of proteins. And that range of proteins could change over time. It could expand over time. I think all of that is good. It'll follow what the consumer and the operator needs from us. But I think what we will be known for is to be innovators around protein and be the best ones at listening to consumers and operators and being there to meet their needs. On top of that, that's really more of a United States story. It actually is a global story too, because the world is actually driving protein growth as well. So if you look at the projections for the next 6 or 7 years, there's a lot of growth in protein expected in the US. There's even more growth expected outside of the US. If you look at Europe, Latin America, Asia Pacific, all of those regions, the protein markets are expected to more than double in each of those regions. We have some good business outside of the United States. We have a great thriving business in China that we've been investing in for 30 years. We manufacture and sell products in China. We have partnerships through many other markets in Asia. I see us as a more global company 10 years from now, really, taking some of what we do really well in the US and bringing some of those capabilities for affordable, safe, delicious proteins around the world, but also increasingly more of what we were talking about with spam, which is bringing ideas back to the US from other markets outside of the US. I think there's tremendous opportunity for us to learn about how do you deliver affordable products When we have partnerships in countries like Indonesia, and emerging economies where value is critical. So I think there's a two-way street there in terms of the learning, and I see that as a big part of our future as well.
Fantastic. Thank you so much for the time.
This is great. Thank you.
Thanks. Thanks as well to Keely Doyle, Gabe Noah, Ali Alt, Connor O'Neill, and Mike Novak for all your work behind the scenes. See you next time.